So when we were coming up to the conference and discussing what we want to do there, what some of the things that Dragonchain wants to talk about, I said, we've actually got some real industry-changing opportunities from the products that are being launched here. It's not just how to solve this small little problem for Dragonchain, but they're products that actually can solve major problems for many players within the industry. And so, Joe, CEO of Dragonchain, is going to tell us about those products. Joe Roets.
Right? Why are we moving from a system where 1% dominates all the economic value to a system where we can all have equal participation and we can live and benefit from the American dream by inventing new systems that act in our best interest?
I can see the numbers and I can see what's going on, and it sometimes just doesn't seem real.
That's what we're focused on, not necessarily the dream aspect or the storytelling aspect of but actually bringing this technology to a reality.
We're going to see decentralization of power, and then the largest wealth transfer in human history. And I believe we're seeing a revolution of open source money.
Many of the world's greatest challenges will be solved with new systems powered by blockchain and cryptocurrency, and the sky is the limit. America should be at the forefront of the blockchain and cryptocurrency revolution. There are literally trillions of dollars of economic growth at stake. It's all at stake right now.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I was born in America. I grew up in Dodge City, Kansas. I love this country. I'll die in this country. I was originally doing work at FBI, and I had a team that I kind of pulled out slowly, either guys that were just fed up with the federal contracting, or sometimes they just get bored, and yet they were amazing engineers. We built things, we did things, but typically you would have somebody come in who was on one of the contracts and say, they need this. We delivered something with immediate ROI, which again, in government, it's pretty rare, right? Where it was basically the entire cost of all of our development, the entire cost of our lab, all of our time, all of the hardware, everything involved came in at less than what they were paying for an annual maintenance cost on the hardware they had. I mean, everything was a massive upgrade. One of those things came in, and originally it was because of the traceability, but also just because it was really interesting, was Bitcoin. So I read the Satoshi white paper and realized that it was going to change the way that the world understands value. All of these things are known, right? All of these things is basically taking a whole bunch of really interesting components and making a complete system, a very holistic system, which makes it possible to transfer scarce virtual items, right? Which were Bitcoin. We were having a lot of trouble with the contracts, and how do we pay them, and how do we make it so that it's with dollars if they're not in the US and all these other things. How do we clean that up? And so that was kind of the first thing I was looking at with it. It's like, oh, maybe we could do something where we're paying in cryptocurrency, right? I started to get tired of a lot of the gaming that went on in federal contracting, and there were other things I wanted to build.
I came to the US 30 years ago, and I started 7 different companies. I had a brilliant idea that all of you use today, called voice of IP. So I made a lot of money, and I'm looking at my kids, I look at my 6 kids, and I'm like, they don't have that opportunity. The American dream is not alive for them as it was for me. And the reason for that is that we're all stuck in that pyramid. We're all stuck in a system that is designed to deliver for the 1% and not for the 99%, right? Why are we moving from a system where 1% dominates all the economic value to a system where we can all have equal participation and we can live and benefit from the American dream? The internet created this decentralization and created the ability for people to exchange information, but we did not solve the how do we transfer money or how do we control money. Satoshi really created this right after the 2008 economic collapse.
First thing that you have to understand is today, almost all the money in the world is software. To understand open source money, you need to understand the ethos of open source software. The thing that is astonishing about what's achieved by Satoshi Nakamoto's blockchain is you can point to any single transaction of the billions of transactions, and you can be sure that that's exactly what happened. To me, you can't separate the ethos of Bitcoin and open source money from open source software.
So what Satoshi did is solve the double spend problem. But if I sent you $20 and I still have the original, that is a problem. And that problem, computer science has not been able to solve for over 50 years. Voice over IP came and created a new set of rails running on TCP/IP and UDP to replace the phone companies. The same thing is happening now with the financial system because these guys are sucking all the profit out of the system. Right, the 1%, they're not leaving anything to the average American.
We've arrived at a period in history called peak centralization, which is the maximum amount of centralized power.
Satoshi said, I'm going to create a new system, and I'm going to allow people to basically migrate from the old system where the banks and the financial institutions control money to a system that is equal access to everybody. The blockchain is a new set of rails that allows people to transact with each other without a toll collector in the middle, without a middleman or a trusted party moving money. Wall Street looks at this as an enemy. It looks at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as something that competes with the US dollar, competes with their franchise. It reminds me of the phone companies because I remember when AT&T thought that they were giving God's right to let everybody talk to each other and charge them $3 a minute, you know, like, and now we're doing it for free on WhatsApp and Skype.
And now, with open source money, including Bitcoin, we're going to see decentralization of power and then the largest wealth transfer in human history. This system is a system of decentralized financial infrastructure, which produces, I think, a great opportunity for transformation of wealth inequality and transformation of our presently centralized financial infrastructure. And I believe we're seeing a revolution of open source money.
So when we're talking about centralization versus decentralization, and when I always use this phrase, all roads lead to decentralization. Why do all roads lead to decentralization? Because you cannot take 7.5 billion people and take away the dream from them and think that nothing is going to happen. Okay? What's going to happen is going to be a major revolution. And this time the revolution is about all the money in the world. So this war, it's a war. This is not a little skirmish. This is a war between centralization and decentralization.
My name is Shirley Roets, and I am the Chief Human Resources Officer at Dragonchain. So Joe and I have been married for almost 20 years. Ever since we were married, he's been doing side projects and creating things. Out on my own, I'm 18, I'm a student at KU, and I keep running into Joe. I really was a little scared. I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's got really long hair and he's in a heavy metal band.
We were mostly a local band. We got to play with A lot of bigger bands coming through because we were in Kansas City and everybody passes through on I-70, so it was fun. Rhythm and software is not usually paid attention to. People totally ignore that as a concept, and yet when software is running live, there's an obvious rhythm to it. When you're writing music, it is somewhat similar to writing software. I mean, with music, there is some science to it, of course, but it's mostly art, whereas with software, there is some art to it, but it's mostly science. Software is a lot closer to art. It's almost like an art which requires perfection, right? Where you have to get it perfect for it to function, and yet there's a lot of latitude with, you know, where that perfect line is, so.
We dated for about 3 months, and then June 7th, we eloped and got married, and we've been together for almost 20 years. Everybody thought we were crazy, but here we are.
Disney calls, and first I'm like, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not a Disney person, right? So I'm, you know, never have been or anything else, right? But, you know, I knew, you know, coming in as an architect, there are so many things they could use with this tech, right? And, you know, because they have banking, they have ticketing, they have legal, obvious legal. They have, you know, their own worlds where they could actually use currency if they wanted.
No, it's just his passion, and he's my husband, so, and my soulmate, so.
I started talking to him. I took it, and we moved up here.
And we're taking each other's hands, and we're at the bridge, and we just jump, because to me it's like, well, let's see where this adventure can take us. We decided that, hey, let's uproot the family and move across the country to Seattle.
Inside of Disney, I worked with a small group of engineers to build a new blockchain architecture. Eileen reached out to, you know, basically the whole Seattle team, asking if anybody wanted to talk about Bitcoin.
I'm Eileen Quinnen, and I'm the president of the Dragonchain Foundation. I'm also VP of Strategic Partnerships for Dragonchain Inc. So I grew up mainly in New Orleans. I came to Seattle about 13 years ago after Hurricane Katrina. So I'm a refugee from that storm. Started reading about like Bitcoin and blockchain. I was like super interested. So during the time I was at Disney, I was always trying to find people who were also interested in talking about that sort of thing. And I sent out an email to, like, used to call it the not official business. So I sent out an email saying, hey, anybody here interested in talking about Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency? Let's all get together and just, you know, have lunches.
And I'm like, oh yeah. So went and talked to her and found out what she was already trying to work on, trying to put things together.
Joe reached back out and was like, hey, you know, I'm totally interested in this. Let's talk about it. And so he and I and about 4 or 5 other people just kind of hung out talking about these things.
I started working with her. We built together a volunteer team internally and just started building stuff.
About 1.5 years into Disney, he was frustrated with the politics and just being at a corporation where there's so many layers, and if you want to change something, it takes months. You've got to convince so many people that don't know what they're doing, or people who think they know what they're doing but really don't, because they've been in that position for a long, long time, and therefore they have seniority. He came home and he said, Shirley, I can't keep doing this. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he said, I can't work for other people. I'm going to die.
So we had the open source out there. We had the Dragonchain Foundation that handled it. It's an open source project, so there was no funding. You know, we had some volunteers. We had people that did small work, but it's a new tech. It's complex. It's not something you can get hundreds of people immediately to come in and work on. And because we were doing things very different than, like, say, Ethereum or Bitcoin.
So we just made a commitment to that open source project. And again, this is sort of a common thing in the open source world, so like Linux Foundation, for example. And it just helps to kind of put a container around the open source, and also the commitment of the team to maintain that open source. And the reasons why you want to do it is that we wanted to move blockchain technology forward.
Once we formed Dragonchain outside of Disney, we looked for the best path to raise capital. We obviously explored traditional venture capital and had some really good interest and some offers, but it didn't quite fit, it didn't quite feel right. We chose a more decentralized path by selling our software licenses, our Dragons. We're about to launch Dragonchain ICO, and we know that we have to expect anything.
And it was just cool to be introduced to this new technology. I was always familiar with what Bitcoin can do, but then to start getting exposed in terms of taking what that technology can do and putting into smart contracts, et cetera, it was just an excitement to be at the forefront of something so innovative.
So for our ICO, those were good lessons learned and the different ways in which they managed the Ether and Bitcoin coming in and do the disbursement of the Dragons. It took a lot of coding, it took a lot of expertise, and it went incredibly well.
Look, the graph is pretty much in a one-way direction. It's up 1,000% this year alone.
Bitcoin is the widest, most important deployment of cryptography to individuals in the history of the world.
I think maybe I'm just cross. I didn't put a penny in Bitcoin.
Bitcoin and, the underlying technology is here to stay, so it's not going anywhere.
We'll hit a new record high of $20,000 per coin.
Crypto universe coming back with a vengeance this month. Check out some of the biggest coins in the space surging. Ripple up 50%, Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash up more than 40%, and Litecoin and Bitcoin are up around 20%. This as the total crypto market cap hits a 4-week high, now back above $350 billion. And our own crypto...
It's unbelievable how Joe brought his vision to life. Sometimes I don't believe it myself, just being in that blockchain technology space. It's new and exciting.
It exceeded my wildest dreams, and that feels funny. It's kind of like Wile E. Coyote, where you're like, I'm gonna run, and then you're like, oh wow, I went further than I knew how to go. We're probably gonna double in size in the next month. It's crazy. We've outgrown like 3 offices already.
Not only want to secure my future, I want, now we have other people working for us, so I want to secure their future. I don't want to let them down. It's exciting, and at the same time, it's terrifying.
There was a lot of relief, even on the rest of the team, that that was accomplished, it was successful, and it was complete. Now this is real, so we have to deliver, and that's a big deal. There's a lot of pressure.
Our JoJo, our logo is really popular. Merch is a product, right, that we can do. And so more people just love this character, and I see that evolving.
Feels in my gut like it's all meant to be.
Cryptocurrencies are a crock.
We've made it clear what the law is. If you are promoting securities, you're taking on securities law liability.
I am understanding you to say it is a violation of the law.
Yes.
So should I take today as you're sounding a warning bell for people? Maybe they better pay a little closer attention to the law, or the SEC is going to pay closer attention to them?
Yeah.
Governments are going to crush it one day.
Why is the narrative around Bitcoin is still really hard to grasp?
Who cares about Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is worth 0.
But fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
In terms of cryptocurrencies, generally, I can say almost with certainty that they will come to a bad ending.
Hello. Oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? Today, February 2nd, we received an official notice from the SEC that Dragonchain is under investigation.
It's really hard. So, yeah.
Losing sleep, stomach always upset, stressed out like crazy. What it amounts to is you have these lawyers that are controlling the technology, which is not what you want at all, because you're gonna end up with these monsters, things that shouldn't be, that are more complex or built in ways that are not efficient or not appropriate, because the lawyers think that this is what the regulators want, even though they're not saying it. Whenever you do anything like that, where you have a bureaucratic control over engineering, that's Chernobyl. That's how Chernobyl happened. You look at the Challenger disaster. So it feels like we're supposed to fight this battle with the SEC. They're coming after us. We didn't do anything wrong. Every interpretation I see of the actual law We didn't break any of those things.
I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. The lawyers ask you questions, you answer as honestly as you possibly can and give them all the information that they need, because really that's the best way to handle things. I really do feel that the SEC, this whole process and what they're doing and constantly questioning us is affecting his health. His mental health, his physical health, it's affecting his mood, it's affecting our marriage. I mean, it's affecting him as a dad too. He's trying to innovate because he's great at thinking of ways to use the blockchain technology and how it can better different parts of the economy and different parts of different businesses. And he's not able to do that as freely because I feel like he's constantly answering questions from the lawyers. And it's so difficult because the lawyers don't understand it either. The lawyers don't understand the technology. So then you have the lawyers talking to the SEC. So the lawyers don't understand the technology. They know the financial security aspect of it. But my biggest fear is the SEC coming down and shutting Dragonchain down. And we're gonna throw Joe in jail. It's my biggest fear. It's not funny.
I know that I probably differ with some folks here about their opinion about it. I personally think that it's not necessarily a bad thing that the industry as a whole is being looked at. I think it will actually help everybody, because the good ones will float to the top, right? And, I believe we're one of the good ones. So I see it as a good thing personally.
I always get frustrated and angry at inefficiencies, but when it's to this level, it's bad. I can't sleep as well. I don't think I fell asleep around 3, right? And for a while I was losing a lot of weight, which isn't a bad thing, but it's because my stomach is all messed up. And now I've been eating too much because I'm stressed out. I end up wasting my time dealing with this whole situation where, I should be able to be a little more strategic. And I'm able to because I'm able to separate myself, but it's hard. So, I mean, in the end, it's one of those things, it's, whatever doesn't kill you just makes you stronger, but I do wish I could just focus on the things I think I should be focusing on. It's just hell, right? So, and all this is because of the SEC. Everything else about this entire job, everyone who's working for this company, the actual job, the real work, is like a dream job. So I've been stressed with the SEC stuff, so I'm headed up into the hills to blow off some steam. Sasquatch country. Sacrifice to create a nation based upon liberty and democracy. Now our government is attacking its own citizens for developing technology based on the purest expression of those values. I'm a patriot. I've spent most of my career working with the government. I've always held America's best interest close to my heart. America should be at the forefront of the blockchain and cryptocurrency revolution. There are literally trillions of dollars of economic growth at stake. Many of the world's greatest challenges will be solved with new systems powered by blockchain and cryptocurrency, and the sky's the limit. For Dragonchain, for the technology itself, and for the evolution of humanity, it's all at stake right now. This is America, and we will fight for our freedom to defend what we've built.
And the bus would drop me off right there. That's one of the buses. And I'd walk through Lafayette Park to get to my office. It was such a surreal moment, especially as someone from a really small rural area of the country, to come and be in DC and walking into the White House every day. You go up to the gates, you type in a code, Secret Service lets you in, you show your ID and your pass, and then you go in. And it was just, every day, it was like this crazy, surreal moment for me. So I'm Perry Boring, the founder and president of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. So I'm a native Floridian. I was studying economics at the University of Florida during the housing collapse. So during this historic financial crisis. So that bubble, when it popped, impacted my family, my community, really everyone I knew. I really wanted to understand what was going on. So I started asking a lot of questions, did a lot of research, and the results and conclusions that I came to were really upsetting and pretty scary. And so I decided to dedicate my career to fighting for a better economic future for my generation and those that will come after me. And that led me to Bitcoin. So I learned about Bitcoin through my work on the Hill, researching different types of economic issues. And from the moment I was introduced to this digital currency that was not controlled by the government or a corporation or a group of people, I came to the conclusion that Bitcoin and blockchain is the most important technology I will ever see in my life, and I've got to work in this industry. So I worked on Capitol Hill for several years, so I got to really understand the legislative process. How do laws get passed through Congress and signed into law by the president? If you want to affect change, you've got to be able to drive the legislative process. I don't know if you've been paying attention to Congress recently, but it is not a rational being to have to deal with. The place we were in Washington in that time was out of fear, anxiety, and skepticism. People didn't understand it, they were scared of it, and they didn't believe in it. And so to me, as someone who really wanted to dedicate my career to this ecosystem, decided to start an organization, the Chamber of Digital Commerce, to be a nonprofit, to be headquartered in Washington, to work with the policy community to teach them and give them resources about this technology that's of high integrity and high quality. The internet was created out of government programming, multi-millions of dollars, decades of government funding and research to create the ARPANET, what became the internet. The very first consumer use case for the internet was email. So send a simple message online, instantly, peer-to-peer. We are 10 years into blockchain. There's been no government funding behind it to help develop it and support it. And the first use case for blockchain has been Bitcoin. Send a payment, a currency, online, instantly, peer-to-peer, anywhere in the world for free or for very low cost. We need better architecture to facilitate transactions. The internet was built to facilitate communications, to share information. It was not built to share anything of value, and that's what blockchain is. The US is at a big disadvantage because we have a very fragmented regulatory approach. It's very different than a lot of other areas of the world where they have streamlined regulatory structure. The US Department of the Treasury was the first regulator to issue guidance around the blockchain and the crypto space. Their guidance said that convertible virtual currency like Bitcoin would be regulated like a currency. Later on, the IRS, they came out and said, well, convertible virtual currencies are going to be taxed as property. So one's currency, one's property. The CFTC said, well, actually, it can be a commodity, or it is a commodity. Then the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is regulating and calling some of these tokens securities. So there were just 4 examples of ways in which different regulators are applying their jurisdiction. So how can something be a currency, a property, commodity, and a security all at one time? So if you can imagine, if you're a business trying to operate in this space, it's very hard to navigate through those regulatory waters.
So I was in university at the time with a group of friends, and we started to really look into Bitcoin and what could we do about it. And through that, I got really involved in the Toronto crypto community, and I got introduced to somebody named Anthony Diorio.
So it began for me in the summer of 2012. I heard about Bitcoin, bought Bitcoin the first day I heard about it. It was under 10 bucks I got it for. Started the Toronto Bitcoin meetup group a couple weeks later because there was no communities in Toronto or in Canada. A few months in, I'd sold my first company in Bitcoin, and for all Bitcoin, I used that capital from the sale of the company and from what my investment was, and I funded Ethereum.
This is a great governance lesson with Ethereum. People were given a small amount of money, about 18 million. That's not a huge amount of money to go and try to change the world, and they did. They created the most successful open source project of all time.
So once Ethereum came onto the forefront and the thought of not just Bitcoin, but anything could be made on the blockchain, the possibilities are endless, all the developers started flooding in.
This is the modern day industrial revolution, or the modern day version of the internet, the new internet, but it's about 10 times bigger than the internet.
So I think things are going from the age of information to the age of value, and that value is going to be much more important than information.
So just like everybody in the 1980s saw computers, and they say one day these computers are going to change the whole world, they're going to make the world amazing, but it still did take decades to get to the iPhone and take decades to get to the internet.
So if the US really fights this thing here, the other countries are going to be saying, that's great, yeah, keep fighting it there, we're going to move it forward.
Part of the reason I think that we're seeing so much uncertainty in the US is because of lobbyists. You know, you've got big, powerful incumbents that are spending lots of money to influence regulators to kill the industry.
Canada and the United States have taken a relatively conservative approach to securities regulation, and that essentially has driven a lot of blockchain companies to leave.
Regulators have an important job to do, and that is to protect their people. Obviously, this wouldn't be a very good thing if it were a fight between the new and the old. It's everyone figuring out how to evolve together.
These, we can get like a real-time price stream of crypto prices. Oh, this is great. Oh, yeah. The entire front entrance? Oh, this is great. Great find, Barbara. Amazing. I mean, this is a great office. So yeah, we've got lots of different funds and money things. Well, this is great. I'm looking forward to this. Come style this out. I was an interior decorator in another life.
Where do you live now?
So I've got a house up the hill in Pachero called the Crypto Castle. Well, welcome to Crypto Castle #1 now. #2 coming soon. This is my magazine that we hand out and evangelize with. Distributed, a 108-page primer on blockchain technology. This is Why Bitcoin, all about the crypto. This turns into a battle station for startup ideation. In fact, this is where Comma AI was founded, the self-driving car startup founded by the famous hacker GeoHot. He slept in the closet over here. Famous folks in crypto, from Vitalik Buterin to Bram Cohen, have stayed in this room. This is Barbara, my co-founder. Jordan, he runs most of our operation. My little protege, he's like 16, has an AI fintech company out of Cleveland. This is Oris, just dropped out of Northwestern, just turned 20 yesterday. This is Amart, one of our advisors for Awesome Ventures. I tried activism. I'd been at Occupy Wall Street and Zuccotti Park. I knew the financial system was broken. Now I knew the political system was broken. And I had this period of cognitive dissonance where I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But shortly after falling out of love with politics, I transferred to the University of Michigan and just happened to move in with young Bitcoin enthusiasts. I was cynical and quite skeptical, but I didn't really have anything better to look to. And as someone that had seen that, you couldn't fix our current financial system, you couldn't fix our current political system, as much as I came from a very kind of liberal Marxist upbringing, I saw the potential in Bitcoin to be this radically inclusive, democratized financial system that anybody could participate in, that was totally global. This is where Augur was founded. This is where my fund was founded. Casper, the sharding system for Ethereum, was named here. It's really just this ideation station. People come, live, build, and grow together. It's really remarkable what it's become over the past half decade or so. It's been absolutely amazing to see how it's something like 6 or 7 millionaires have been minted while living here. Young people under my mentorship, you could probably add another half dozen. I mean, it's wild.
I'm Kingsley. I run 2 VC funds.
Chain Fund Capital, which is a blockchain fund, and Science Fiction Ventures. I was an early investor in Bitcoin. I first invested in 2013, and I was really fascinated at the way you could decentralize money. Over time, I started investing in more early-stage blockchain companies, and over time, I amassed a portfolio of about 50 investments. The majority of them are actually based in San Francisco, so I ended up moving from London to San Francisco to be closer to the companies I was investing in. After initial investment of around $34,000, I've grown it to a portfolio of around $10 million. I do feel much happier. I'm part of a better community. Having worked previously in investment banking, I've seen how inefficient existing financial infrastructure can be. So I'm really interested in how a decentralized form of finance can be, can power the next 1,000 years of financial payments on the planet.
I really loved Bitcoin. It was this tool to empower potentially billions of people and have financial sovereignty in this growingly Orwellian world. It's really something special.
It's just about putting a tag on something and saying, look what we did. Well, with blockchain technology, we can prove the source of any one of these products, from tomatoes to cattle to chickens. We can prove that source, and we can prove it on a plate. And I really think that's where this technology can be beneficial.
And I think it's the most important revolution of the last year, maybe bigger than internet.
For the first time in 6,000 years, now we have a better way of doing it. It's a pretty crazy moment in human history.
In America, this is potentially a gigantic change for the better in terms of all the things that are possible with blockchain and all of the value that can be created.
Realistically, blockchain is ours. It is. It was invented here. So I want innovation to happen right here. If you look at Congress right now, they're not doing anything, right? They're not trying to look at this ICO situation and trying to clean up regulation. We've got companies fleeing the United States, U.S. citizens that are taking their companies to Malta because the federal government has done nothing, and there's so much uncertainty in regards to what should happen or what kind of regulations are in place.
We've already been working with a couple of different groups that were interested in the unique angles that we had on the technology for the things they needed to do. On an incubator, we wanted to basically create a framework where a project, even if it's only a single person, if it's an idea or if it's something that's already been built, that they can come through and flesh out what's needed to get them to the next level. Okay, there were a lot of exciting projects that signed up right away. I think we had over 500 projects that submitted applications, including Look Lateral and Metropolis. With the platform itself, we decided we needed a way to tokenize the access.
I'm Nicolò Filippo Veneri Savoia. I am the CEO of Look Lateral company. Look Lateral was founded by my mother, the Italian journalist Maria Grazia Savoia. It was a magazine. It was a magazine born in 2007. So I was developing an art advisory platform, a platform based on art advisory, which is the person who explains you the value of an artwork. I decided to create this marketplace for fractions of artworks, so a sort of art stock exchange. Of course, I read a lot of possible technology that could be useful for this platform. I was creating something very new, and my duty was to understand which technology could be the best technology for my project. I started to study blockchain. I understood that was the perfect technology for what I wanted to create. The world of art is full of lacks, a lack of transparency, a lack of liquidity, and so to have a technology that allows you to track everything in the life cycle of an artwork, or to give you the possibility to fractionalize the ownership of an artwork through an innovative tool like the smart contract instead of the old co-ownership agreements. I was surprised in seeing how much this technology was perfect for the art problems. This creates a big circle of liquidity, a new liquidity in the art market. And so I decided to use this technology. I started to search a CTO that could have the possibility to implement this technology in my vision. And so I discovered Joe Roets.
Niccolo reached out to me on LinkedIn way back. He saw that I had some blockchain background, and they were wanting to do something. They had a few ideas.
I explained my vision and the project and why we would like to use blockchain. He immediately understood. He got the point.
So Look Lateral makes it possible for anyone in the world to own a piece of, some of those really high-end artworks. You don't have to be a billionaire to say, oh, I want to buy that. It's like, oh, you can actually own a piece.
If you divide the ownership of an artwork in 1,000 or 1 million fractions, of course, you can own a piece of a Picasso or a piece of an emergent artist.
If you're a healthcare expert and you have an idea that could be tokenized, you shouldn't have to know all the blockchain experts in the world to deliver that. A number of our partners, most of the incubator firms that were announced, received an official subpoena from the SEC with no notice to us, which was really bad because I was out of office and the rest of the team was kind of freaked out.
The thing is, with these projects, these are small businesses, these are startups. They have no money yet behind them other than what their kind of sweat equity is. And now they're getting forced to hire lawyers to protect them. And I could hear their frustration. It's one of those things with Dragonchain where at this moment we're spending more on legal than any other resource combined. And this is really slowing down innovation and resources that could be used better elsewhere. We could be so much farther along in the game if the government let us.
Metropolis is an HR and recruiting platform built on top of a blockchain. Joe and I, we met in a business capacity at Disney years and years ago. I mean, if you go big picture and you think about the possibilities of what blockchain can do, there's not a single government entity that's in charge of one thing. It's completely decentralized. And the fact, I love that. We were one of the companies to receive an SEC subpoena. I thought for sure this is a scam. And then I look a little bit further in and I'm like, yeah, that's not a scam. That's not a scam. That says at sec.gov, it says subpoena. Wow. Clearly you guys don't know who I am. I'm just a little dude, I don't have anything to offer. Why are you subpoenaing me? This is not the droid you're looking for. I'm stressed, I'm sweating, I'm freaking out. What have I done to get a subpoena? I am screwed. It says I gotta fly to Chicago and see the SEC in person, and I'm a little bit flattered, but I'm scared out of my mind. We have done nothing wrong. We bought a web domain, we have a code base, and we sent out an idea to about 10,401 at the time folks on Telegram who are passionate about Dragonchain, and said, here's an idea, what do you think? It feels very unjust.
And so it's really frustrating because when you feel like you try to do everything the right way and by the book and according to the laws, and then they still come after you.
So in my eyes, it's a huge intimidation thing. And you could tell that some of these incubator projects are shooken up because again, they're just starting. They just want to have their dream and push this new awesome technology to people and have them understand it. And especially with a project such as Give With Nothing, they are a complete nonprofit play. This was the reason why I personally wanted to get involved with them, because they wanted to bring clarity to that industry and make sure that money was being spent clearly. And now it feels like the government is saying that you can't do that.
Okay, so of all the projects that because they're partners with us, so this is like a small, but it's a sample of what's out there, that I believe BioCrypt is going to move outside the US. I can't remember what domicile. Look Lateral is very much leaning towards Switzerland. Give With Nothing is looking to just give up because it's not worth the risk involved of doing this in the US, and they're Americans, and they say, well, we just won't do anything. Which, that's a charity one. So it's like, if the charity one is scared to do anything, then, I don't know what profit-seeking project would be interested in doing it in the US right now.
Tyler Lindholm. I am House District number 1, state representative in the state of Wyoming. If anybody ever knocks on your door and says, I'm running for such and such government position, and you ask them why they're running, they give you a vanilla answer that this, they're trying to do public service or something like that. We should elect people that are mad about something, that want to make a change, because they're actually going in to fix something, they're passionate about something, and that's why I ran. The biggest thing that I was passionate about was some of the agriculture aspects that were in place. A lot of folks think about agriculture, they think about farm subsidies, those types of things, but a lot of the reasons those exist is because the federal government or the state government in lots of situations has restricted farmers and ranchers from being able to sell directly to consumers.
The economic challenge to be profitable every year has always been there from, 60 years ago. Soon as these big corporations, the big packing plants, have got together and they basically have dictated what price they'll pay to the producer every year. It isn't based on the economy. It isn't based on inflation. It's based on how much are they going to make that year and how much are they going to let the producer make.
A lot of my goal when I went in was to kind of free up that market, to make that producer to informed end consumer relationship actually happen. I think the most exciting aspect of blockchain technology and what we're seeing right now, what you can do with food with it.
This happens to be the XRS2 stick reader, is we're able to read that electronic identification. It's recorded, and then we can transfer it via Bluetooth, or we can hook up the computer and transfer that information to the blockchain system.
With blockchain technology, we can prove the source of any one of these products, from tomatoes to cattle to chickens. We can prove that source, and we can prove it on a plate. And I really think that's where this technology can be beneficial.
My name is James Bird. I am currently elected in the State House of Representatives, representing House District 44. The blockchain was something that I'd heard about, and it was out there floating around, but I was busy working on a couple other bills.
During 2015, the Wyoming Division of Banking came out with some regulations that said that any and all cryptocurrency exchanges have to go through the Wyoming Transmitters Act. Now, mind you, this is an act that was written before digital currencies were ever a thing, so really didn't fit the mold at all. And because of that, a lot of outfits just flat left the state of Wyoming. They wouldn't do business with Wyoming customers. So we put together this package of bills, and we threw a couple touchdowns.
Tyler Lindholm, the prime sponsor on it. We are good friends, and we go back and forth. We're, kidding, adversarial, and everything. He jumped on this, and so as we were going through it, I felt bad, but that he kind of scooped me on this whole deal, because this is really kind of what I'm all about. But so I joined on it as a prime sponsor, co-sponsor, and really helped push this thing through the legislature with Tyler.
Right, so we had 5 pieces of legislation. One took care of that Money Transmitters Act, so those exchanges could come back to the state of Wyoming. And then our second one, and I really think kind of our bigger one, had to do with open blockchain tokens, or ICOs. And what all that did was differentiate that there is a difference between utility tokens and security tokens. And we've essentially, in the state of Wyoming, made that a new asset class. That one we got a lot of attention for, rightfully so. If you look at Congress right now, they're not doing anything, right? They're not trying to look at this ICO situation and trying to clean up regulation. We've got companies fleeing the United States, U.S. citizens that are taking their companies to Malta because the federal government has done nothing, and there's so much uncertainty in regards to what should happen or what kind of regulations are in place.
And because of the blockchain, and because of a couple other bills that we did that inside the business entities section that address technologies, we are seeing those entrepreneurs, those people in the tech sectors, those people behind the money and the ingenuity inside the blockchain, inside the Bitcoin. They're coming to Wyoming and they're setting up shop, because in the other places, they're still getting the discussion as, yeah, we like that, we're really interested in it, but we're not there. Hey, we'll get back to you. Why don't you call us back in 6 months?
We're registering anywhere from 2 to 3 businesses per day since the end of session. So it's really a groundswell of new businesses that are registering in the state of Wyoming. What does that mean to the average Wyoming voter or citizen? It means that that company is now paying an annual fee to be able to have their business domiciled in the state of Wyoming. It's one of the cheapest fees in the nation, but it is a fee just the same that goes to pave roads, that goes to build schools, etc. So that's a really cool aspect, but that's a very base aspect. What I'd really like to see is I want these companies. I want brick and mortar. I want office jobs. I want the tech jobs. I want innovation to happen right here.
I want you to know Wyoming is open for business right now. You want to come out to Wyoming, you want to set it up, we're going to facilitate you going as far out into space as you can and blowing it up as big as you can.
We want the next Google. We want the next Facebook. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, that's a big dream for me. Maybe it'll never happen. I don't know. But, you know, dreams are free. Might as well dream big, I guess.
We became the first $1 million company to accept Bitcoin, but we were $1.3 billion. At the time, the largest business in the world was a diner in Australia of $800,000 a year revenue, I am told. And the world of Bitcoin was kind of expecting, you know, in a year or two, they'd have a company with $1 million, maybe a few years later, $10 million, $100 million, maybe someday $1 billion. We stepped in and started taking it at $1.3 billion or $1.4 billion. So we like to think that, or I've been told that some people think we saved sort of 5 to 8 years maybe to the movement. For a publicly traded company's CEO to jump into the spaces I did several years ago was rather dicey, because it wasn't like it was illegal, but it was just non-legal. There was all kinds of big fuzzy areas. Just deciding things is a big step forward, so it takes out gray area. But then in Wyoming, they've passed some very blockchain-friendly laws. I've been so impressed with this visit. I mean, it's nice when they decide things in a way that expands the room for blockchain like they have. Well, Wyoming has passed some laws that really carve out a nice safe space for blockchain companies to be based, frankly, to come to Wyoming. And I'm so impressed. I think I'm going to create a facility with 50 developers here. Everybody involved in the ICO world got a subpoena. We did not get a subpoena. It was falsely reported that we did. We did get a letter asking us for voluntary cooperation. The SEC does not want you to downplay it when you have such a matter, and you're supposed to say, we're under investigation by the SEC, so I'm under investigation by the SEC. Well, they asked for what turned out to be 2 million documents. I understand that there were days where we had 100 lawyers at a law firm reviewing documents. I think it cost us maybe either $6 or $10 million of attorneys sitting in offices. They've checked and checked and checked, and now they're making us spend $6 to $10 million. It's all now in the hands of the SEC. I don't know if they're going to read the 2 million documents. The establishment, the institutions that are going to be disrupted, own a lot of the power, a lot of political authority, and they don't want to see blockchain make progress because they know what's at the end of it. 'Cause
At Daytona International Speedway. It's the race with the Dragonchain car.
The SEC has stepped in and basically said, look, we're in the process of regulating this space because there are too many scams, and we want to protect the layman's investor that doesn't really understand what they're putting their money into. And it's not necessarily a matter of dealing with the regulations that are in place today. It's the fear of how the regulations may change tomorrow retroactively. And that's the fear that's creating all of this FUD all over the space.
I'm an executor. I make sure, for me, the dream was always to take a vision like a Bill Gates vision, a Steve Jobs vision, and be the one to help make it a reality.
This technology itself is meant to disrupt everything. Right? That's the whole point of it.
Bitcoin is the new guillotine. The reign of terror is like almost 30,000 elites were killed, which they had to purge the system. And it gave us freedom and democracy as we know it.
I think Americans might want to move aggressively. I don't think the regulators want to move aggressively. I just hope they don't move so slowly. People decide, wow, I got to go to Gibraltar, or I got to go to, the crypto valley in Switzerland.
So we're busy working on the commercial platform to make sure that it's ready for release. And it's coming up really soon now, and we're excited about it.
No, I don't. Fair. And this is how we do that?
No, I don't want to.
I'm kind of nervous. I mean, obviously, I'm super excited about our products, but I mean, like when you have something that's this big about to just drop, when really we're on such tight deadlines, it's really hard to gauge on how this is going to work.
It was some of the most stressful work I've ever had to deal with.
I know, that's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of, I don't know, just being unsure.
I mean, I think we're solving a problem that has never been solved before, and we're doing it in a way that no one's ever thought to. So we're writing code in a language that I don't think anyone's ever written a smart contract for before, and that's kind of cool.
We're just really giving a lot more freedom, and that's really what expands technology, is people thinking of things in different ways. I think we're giving people a really good platform to just excel and explore and just build cool.
There are systemic problems at all levels of management, but it's fun when I'm writing code.
Like, okay, we're thumbs up. We're all good. We're all ready for the commercial launch. And I come out of the meeting, and I'm like, how are we? And they're like, we're working on this additional feature. And I'm like, wait a minute, additional feature? Like, I'm sorry, we were ready to go. Who asked for an additional feature? And of course, our esteemed director of marketing, Joe Nell.
Hello.
I'll clean that up and I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool. Awesome. ETA?
Yeah. 20 minutes?
Yes. Cool. But good, good job, guys. 24-hour period. Nice.
Thank you.
The dream was always to take a vision like a Bill Gates vision, a Steve Jobs vision, and be the one to help make it a reality. That there's so many visions out there, but there's some actual visions worth helping out to build. And I feel like the world, the solutions, the good to society that Joe's vision that he's trying to execute is something worthwhile. So that for me to be part of that, I'd be pretty happy with that.
So the Dragonchain commercial platform will launch on April 5th, Satoshi's birthday.
Yeah, so one of the big dates kind of coming up is April 5th, when the actual commercial platform is released. The whole one this is the one that we're going to be presenting to every enterprise. We actually have this product, this package to present to the world in regards to, this is it, this is the dream, here it is. So it's gonna be exciting to market.
Holy
So yeah, we just launched the platform.
It was successful, and there was whiskey to be had.
think the market continues to go higher because there's value there.
Steph, would you, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I mean, you named Macy's as one of the stocks, and obviously it had a great start and then stuttered just last, 10 days ago, a week ago, and fell from 41 to 35. Is that one of the ones you'd look at again now?
Okay, let's turn this bad boy up.
John Najarian started playing football in Chicago for the Chicago Bears in 1981. I only played for 4 games and then I got cut. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wanted to stay in Chicago. And luckily, the trading floors were pretty attractive back then because they had all these, relatively young men and women that are jumping up and down, screaming, waving their hands. I traded on the floor for about 25 years. 2005, we started building a brokerage firm called Trade Monster, eventually selling it to E-Trade for $750 million. We began in 2012 and 13 starting to trade cryptocurrencies, and by 2017 we were pretty active in it. I helped launch tokens, or these ICOs, initial coin offerings. I help people when they're launching those by doing videos with them at the NASDAQ, for instance. I think eventually you'll see more and more people trading stock for Bitcoin, Bitcoin for stock, and so forth, back and forth. Anybody can buy it in any amount. They don't have to be 100,000. They don't have to be super qualified investor. You're not tied up with your money for 4 years or 5 years while you wait for the company to come public. As soon as that token's minted, you have liquidity. Not everyone's a winner, don't mean to say that, but there's a lot of them that are winners, and you can recognize that in your wallet right now.
When I started covering this as a journalist, back then it was all about how far can this thing go? How far can the price go up? And then as the price sort of subsided, Wall Street was the natural place to look, to see, all right, the price is down, the public is less interested, but does that mean that Wall Street is less interested? And the answer was no. I reported on at least 4 people leaving New York to join a crypto firm. The talent raid from crypto to Wall Street is enormous, and that also speaks to why I wouldn't stop paying attention to this space yet, because you just had a whole migration exodus of people from Wall Street that are now working on projects in crypto. And it's ironic, right, that a player like the New York Stock Exchange is getting involved in the space, because when this whole thing came about like 8 years ago, right, the idea was, how can we create a rival payment system to Wall Street that left our economy in ruins? That precipitated this crypto revolution, right? Here we are 10 years later, and Wall Street and the big banks are trying to shove themselves inside of it. Middlemen, essentially, for this product that was developed to eliminate middlemen.
From Toronto, very proud Torontonian, as we call ourselves. This is really the ground zero for crypto. This is where Ethereum was founded. This is where a lot of the capital is concentrated, because Ethereum created all this wealth. Ethereum is like nothing else that ever has happened before or ever will happen. It was like an absolute rocket ship. It found its kind of go-to-market strategy for fundraising for ICOs like Polymath to raise capital. And yeah, just the whole community, it's the biggest crypto community by far, by 10x.
It comes back to that community, right? Like, if we're able to build a community where people feel like, hey, other people are just tackling the same problem I'm tackling, whether it be in a different industry or in a different country, that's okay, but we're all tackling the same problem. And we're at that forefront of making history happen.
Tell me, Maddie, does it inspire you to have your mom in this field, in blockchain? We do a lot of international tax structuring. It's not only focused on international tax. For me, it's a broader viewpoint and perspective. And that comes essentially from canvassing the world for the regulation that's the best in the best jurisdiction. But we're seeing a lot of the innovation come out of emerging markets. You're seeing the Caribbean, Africa, and soon to be Latin America and Asia really taking stances that make companies want to go to them. And then after that, it's just a matter of where is it that you want to be based, and all of the other factors that you have to take into consideration.
You provide those commercial banks or financial institutions with the mobile wallet, the ATM, the merchant processing system, all connected to that digital dollar issued by central bank. So we built the entire stack and we launched it in Barbados, and now we're expanding into other areas.
Barbados has a digital dollar.
Barbados has a digital dollar now. It's a proud moment because this is a region that's been ignored forever. It's not done in any field or any industry. It's been known for sun and sand, and now it's being known for tech. And it's to show the rest of the world that's what you're up against. You're up against that type of regulator.
I'm the Minister for National Security for the government of Bermuda. Bermuda was always innovating to stay on top of it, to bring people to Bermuda, to bring innovation to the world, to make money and survive. And so what we decided to do that no other country had done, that we're gonna put some legislation in place that would allow people to say, you know what, I'm gonna choose Bermuda, not only because it's beautiful, but because Bermuda has a regulation that will allow us to have regulatory certainty. So in April of this year, we passed the ICO legislation. So if a person has an ICO and they want to raise money or they want to set it up, well, Bermuda is one of the few countries in the world that have ICO legislation.
They're open and they're having these discussions, and when you look at a country like Bermuda that has, in less than 6 months, passed legislation, works with companies, you can get an ICO basically launched within 5 weeks. That's very impressive. And that demonstrates it's a commitment to blockchain companies and a commitment to their local population as well.
A lot of the regulations in Canada is following our neighbor down south. So the whole regulatory landscape in Canada right now is still very gray, very unclear.
The regulators are looking at the 19th century and the 20th century. They have no idea what's happening in the 21st century. Bitcoin will put all the regulators out of business. All the regulators, SEC, FINRA, all over the world, they need to quit, get real jobs, get in the Bitcoin industry, get in the crypto industry, and get on board, because they're all going to be disintermediated within the next 5 years.
I was 2.5 months old. My mom moved me from Stockton, California to Canton, Ohio. Welfare, Section 8, it was a struggle for my mom. My mom basically raised me and, buying stuff at yard sales for 10 cents and flipping it for $60 at a flea market. I would ask her, where's my dad? What's up with my dad? And all she would ever tell me was just he was involved with really bad people. I tracked him down. I was 21 and he had just gotten out of prison. The first thing I said was, just to let you know right now, I don't want anything from you. I said, but I think you're my father. And he said, who is this? And I said, this is Jason Appleton, son of Gene Appleton. And he said, oh my God, you're my boy. I was stumbling around YouTube and I saw some YouTubers talking about, cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, ICOs. The one thing everybody on YouTube says is, do your own research. So I did, and I just read everything. I started buying books on blockchain. I went out and I maxed 3 credit cards to build my first Ethereum mining rig. I spent 30 hard days, and I just had this really powerful epiphany where I understood the technology, all of this technical stuff that was just like gibberish to me for so long. But I kept reading, pushing through, even though I didn't understand a lot of it. And it was almost like it all came together while I was sleeping. And I woke up and I realized this is the future. I was mining Ethereum. And so I was mining it up and I would start investing it into just all kinds of different stuff. And I turned that into 90 grand in 60 days. People who are born into wealth are born with this expectation of themselves and the world around them to provide opportunities for them to make money, right? It's a mindset where it's like, I know I'm gonna be wealthy, and so I'm open to exploring new ways to make sure that happens. People who are born without money, they're born into the grind. they're of the mindset that they're never going to amount to more than the number of hours they punch in at the factory. And so it's this mindset that I'm trying so desperately to break in people, because it's a different day, it's a different age, and there's so much more opportunity right now for somebody that has very little and be able to turn that into a lot.
Back when I first got into Bitcoin, there was not a lot of education out there. There wasn't a lot of information. The websites were janky. The resources for me to learn back then weren't nearly as robust as they are now. However, people now don't have an excuse because there's information about Bitcoin everywhere. And so I always try to implore people to learn more about what Bitcoin is, what blockchain is. This is not about some kind of random digital payment, or digital currency. It's really a movement. Obviously, China going all in on blockchain was a direct result of the Libra hearings.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much.
Why would you have a project like that?
We provide the guidance to the regulators.
Will you commit to waiting until you get approval from every U.S. regulator that Libra affects before you'll support launching Libra? Yes or no?
Everyone agrees Facebook has become too powerful. But the more important thing is basically what that signaled to China is that, hey, they're not going to make the first move. They're not going to power forward with cryptocurrency and blockchain. Now it's our opportunity to do that. I think it's the modern day space race. I think it's going to be who succeeds, the United States or China, in getting a digital currency that is going to get worldwide adoption.
Daytona International Speedway. It's the race with the Dragonchain car, so.
My name's Corley Joy. I drive the 72 Dragonchain TriStar Chevrolet. It's my second year in Cup, so I'm knocking all the rookie rust off, and I'm in my sophomore season having fun with it.
The crypto community is super cool. Like, it's just great to see all these different projects, and especially ones that are out there helping the world. Like, this is just some really awesome stuff that we're going to change the world with.
I mean, it was a funny thing because it just fits perfect because we're an American blockchain, it's NASCAR. It's not to promote the coin or to promote the price or anything stupid. It's just, you think about it, we're after enterprises, we're after startups, we're after American innovation, so that's what it's about.
When you can take $1,000, turn it into $50,000 in a matter of 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, it's an opportunity for those with less today to gain more for themselves tomorrow. The SEC has stepped in and basically said, look, we're in the process of regulating this space because there are too many scams, and we want to protect the layman's investor from putting money into something that doesn't have merit. A wall has been put up in front of all of us. And so when you look at other countries who are, there are much smaller countries that are much further evolved and further ahead than we are when it comes to this space. And that's why a lot of these major companies with very solid projects, fantastic white papers, amazing all-star teams are saying we don't want any part of the United States because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're not worried about today. We're worried about 6 months from now, 3 months from now, and then whatever that change may be, falling back on us retroactively and creating a whole world of problems. And then we have to go back and play cleanup. Nobody has time for that. This is a forward-thinking process. You should have the same freedoms that anybody else has, and that freedom shouldn't be dictated by how much money you start with.
Hey, good, how are you? There you go. If you read that, go to our website. He's my son. He's serving a double life sentence for all nonviolent charges.
Where?
In Colorado, in a federal prison. Why? He created the Silk Road website. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's him.
Yeah, we're supposed to be a beacon of liberty and all that, and it's like we incarcerate more of our people than any other country in the world. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even believe this. Oh, gosh.
I want the story to be about the technology. I want the story to be about how technology can solve real-world problems. That's what the story needs to be.
During the SEC investigation, it definitely slowed things down and distracted. And the weeks leading up to that was stress beyond compare and not being able to do work.
our forefathers sacrificed to create a nation based upon liberty and democracy. Now our government is attacking its own citizens for developing technology based on the purest expression of those values.
Well, the threat is that innovation goes overseas. And if blockchain is everything that I've bet my entire career that it's going to be, which will be the most important technology of my time, it may not be developed and fostered in the US.
An email from our lawyers that are working with the SEC, and the SEC has thrown out the idea of freezing all of our assets. And so we're responding with documentation on how the ICO ran, what were the results of the ICO, what have been the disbursements since the ICO.
You know, on top of Dragonchain getting subpoenaed, Joe, Eileen, and I got individual subpoenas. It's stressful and it's distracting and it's I wouldn't say a waste of time, but I mean, in terms of company use of time, it kind of is. There is so much legal fees going towards this case and going towards this defense. I definitely feel Joe's stress in regards to having to meet with these guys every day with something that could be solved as easily as just actually making a rule or a regulation.
So we're in Chicago, we're downtown, we're a block or so away from the SEC building, and we have a meeting there all day today, interview, whatever it would be, where I basically have to go answer questions and give them details, you know, whatever they ask. So it'll be interesting.
Eileen, that is one of our founding members, Eileen, who I love dearly and respect dearly, and she is no longer with us. And I truly believe that if that whole situation with the SEC didn't happen, that would not have happened. This was her dream job. She came out of Disney. She's one of the founding members in regards to this whole thing coming together and played a huge role in regards to Dragonchain's growth and where it is at today. We lost a great worker because of this whole situation by a third party. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, so she's no longer with the company, and I wish her the best.
I'm here in Chicago, and I just got out of meeting, interview, testimony with SEC. We definitely got into a lot of the details of the utility and what Dragonchain is and what's different about it.
And I personally feel very good in regards to how the conversations went, and I'm just so happy that that kind of part is over with and that we can get to focus on building.
I feel like this past year has made our business stronger, has made our marriage stronger, our family stronger, and just I feel like we're stronger individually and as people. We've really grown from this experience.
You had Joe in meetings with lawyers 4 or 5 hours a day. You had the CEO of this company, a thought leader in this industry, a revolutionary in terms of the tech, right? And instead of focus on building the technology that, you know, that came out of Disney and is well respected, he's just in meetings all day talking with legal. That's not how you innovate. You know, that's not the American dream. That's not the freedom to do what you want to do. And it's horrible.
I'm just thinking back on what we could have done with that money in terms of growth and putting it into like resources as far as people.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you're gonna see places like China and Japan and see like places that are more friendly towards this technology and regulating it. You know, they're going to experience huge growth, huge innovation, huge financial rewards, and you know, hopefully we can get our crap together and do the same thing.
I do feel like the future looks bright right now. I feel so much better about it.
We have the actual technology, and I'm just excited now to present that to the world. And this isn't imaginary anymore, no.
Yeah, it's good relief.
But hopefully from here on out, it'll get a little easier.
Yeah, I'm Lynn Ulbricht, and I'm the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who's the defendant in the Silk Road case, who's currently serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years for all nonviolent charges for his role in that website. He's always been a very idealistic person and cares about people and ideas and ways to make the world a better place. And that is where he was coming from with creating Silk Road. But it was an open market and fairly unregulated, and the idea of drugs being exchanged, which, by the way, 70% of what was on there was small amounts of cannabis. Just to be clear, there were rules. It wasn't a totally open market. It was based on a philosophy of voluntary interaction and no force. Things that created victims were not allowed, and that would include, say, child pornography or stolen property. A Silk Road admin said one of his jobs was all day long taking off things like hacking software and violent services. He wanted people to experience a truly free market that was safe and private. Although I certainly don't go, oh, Silk Road was a great thing and everything on it was great, and no, I don't. And I don't defend drugs or any of that. But this isn't even about drugs, this case. It's really about personal privacy and freedom and due process.
The biggest criminal trial in the history of the internet is over this morning, and so apparently is Ross Ulbricht's freedom.
First-time offender, no record of violence at all, no victim came forward at trial to say Ross had harmed them, and yet he got double life plus 40 years. Certain aspects of witnesses' testimony was stricken from the record. They got to talk about murder for hire even though it wasn't being charged. The jury never ruled on it. It was never proven. It's all been dropped. When a judge, and not a jury, decides that you're guilty of something and uses it to sentence somebody, that's a violation of the Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment was written to protect the accused from that exact thing, that one judge decides, well, maybe it's not proven, and maybe a jury didn't rule on it, but I think it's true. She was recommended by Chuck Schumer, who was behind the case. He's the one that really said, we got to take this down, we got to go after Bitcoin. That was Chuck Schumer, senior ranking member on the Senate Finance Committee, the Banking Committee, and very much involved in the financial powers. Silk Road served as the first proof of use of Bitcoin and consequently cryptocurrency. And one author, Brian Eha, in his book, said that was why Ross was the second most important figure in Bitcoin history after Satoshi. The biggest drug seller on Silk Road got 10 years. Blake Benthal, who was running Silk Road 2.0, he was arrested. The government was like, it's identical to Silk Road, only it's bigger. It sells more drugs in a month. It has more listings. 13 days later, he's out. No trial, nothing. And no one knows where he is. If Ross is so dangerous, then why is Blake Benthal out in 13 days? This is not equal justice. And one of the tenets of our system is equal justice under the law. 17,000 nonviolent people in our system now serving life. Life sentences have quintupled since the 80s. And this is a terrible thing. This is wrong. Our values are being hijacked by the criminal justice system. I think that cryptocurrency has a great future. It's an amazing creation. I do think we're at a tipping point in history. I'm looking at a crossroads here. One way is towards more government intrusion and control, and including in cryptocurrency, and the other is towards more innovation and freedom, individual freedom. And we are deciding right now, at this point in history, which way we're gonna go.
What are you going to do over the next 20 years?
I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity.
Down here on Wall Street, I think there's a symbolic meaning to why we chose this location. This is the epicenter of all things economic. And it gets to be that we get to help revolutionize the global economy, or at least play our small part right here on Wall Street. What I've loved seeing from my vantage point is people from far-flung corners of the earth who have an opportunity to make a difference. You don't have to live in San Francisco or, and I say this sitting in a skyscraper in New York, in this city to stand out in this industry.
Blockchain is non-discriminatory. Anyone can participate in these networks. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your credit score is, where you live. If you have access to the technology, you get to participate.
A pair-driven marketplace is something that we obviously need in this world.
Nearly 2/3 of the world's population today doesn't have access to banking. This will begin to give them the same opportunities.
Give people the tools.
Give them the road to drive down.
A system that is equal access to everybody.
So if you think about that, that is a deep, deep foundation for an entirely new world.
Now I'm really excited about actually seeing these companies deploy their blockchains, actually seeing the real impact so that these ideas become real.
The technologies will get to where it needs to be.
But it takes a lot of effort to get that momentum started.
And innovation does not happen in this tiny bubble. It doesn't. Innovation's got to have legs.
Bankers, by being able to just print money and hoard money, the wealth and income gaps start to skyrocket.
And it really comes down to the old way, which is share certificates that collect dust in a filing cabinet versus programmable tokens that you can command to do things.
Help participate and create this new crypto economy for truly decentralized systems of exchange, open source money, if you will.
I'm hoping the world will be a level playing field in 5 to 10 years from now.
Let's make the space collaborative.
This is a new era of disruption, a transfer of wealth. It's a period of time that I knew I was not going to let pass me by.
If we don't go further into Bitcoin and further into cryptocurrency and blockchain, then we're going to get left behind.
And everybody understands that you don't want America to be last. There are a bunch of great places, it's not disparaging, where people can set up shop. I hope the United States becomes one of them.
It is an arms race, right?
But if we are able to get the government coordinated, put together a strategy, put together a plan to accept and support this innovation in the U.S., then we can still be a dominant player in this ecosystem.
The onus is on us.
You're in control.
We have the f***ing power.
Forget about all these big ads companies. Forget about all the Google ads. Like, that is so old school. Let's think about a new model.
But I'm telling you, you have to start somewhere. And so one of the things we counsel our clients is find a use case. Find a really good one. Find one that works today. Find a problem and then solve it. And if you can do that consistently, we can tell that story.
This hearing is another remote hearing via video. I remind all senators again and the witnesses that the 5-minute clock still applies. And we will proceed in the order I introduced you. So, Mr. Giancarlo, you may proceed.
I was last before you 2 years ago as CFTC chairman. The subject then was Bitcoin. And I urged respect for a new generation's interest in virtual currency innovation with a thoughtful and balanced policy response. Well, today I'm before you to talk about something that is perhaps more important, and that is upgrading our own national currency, the US dollar, into a digital instrument for generations to come.
If we already had a digital dollar, how differently would things look?
It would be, in a sense, an alternative to the existing architecture, which is the accounts-based architecture, which, despite many efforts to modernize, still inherently remains slow, expensive, and rather exclusionary.
Do you think that the Treasury and the Federal Reserve are equipped to take on those pilot projects? Do they have the necessary resources and staffing?
The answer to your question is, I really believe the right way to do this is the way we did it in the space program, the way we did it in the early days of the internet. And that is, the core policy is driven by the official sector, would be driven by the Federal Reserve. But we would bring in the innovativeness of the private sector, the project management skills of the private sector, and the sense of urgency of the private sector to drive this forward.
I take it from your testimony that none of you are opposed to a digital currency for the U.S. dollar. Is my assumption correct?
Yes, Senator.
That's correct.
All right, I'd like each of you to tell me what Congress needs to do.
So it's been 2 years, and my stress level is higher, if that's possible.
It cost us over $3 million in legal fees defending the company from an SEC investigation.
During the SEC investigation, it definitely slowed things down and distracted. And the weeks leading up to that was stress beyond compare and not being able to do work. We've been building this product more and more and making it more stable, making it more, beyond a proof of concept, beyond a beta product, beyond a live product.
In 2 years, we've done so much. We took what was built at Disney and we built hundreds of features on top of it, speed improvements. We've redesigned it from the ground up.
To be able to then show it off at a level of that is indicative and actually can show that real-life applications could be built to withstand, to have that scalability. It's so important nowadays to not just talk about what you've done, but to show it.
We're doing a performance demonstration for DragonNet. So, this is showing all the transactions that are going through production DragonNet. We're trying to spin up about 10 chains. Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing 4 transactions a second, and we're pulling, right now, that last node was 3,486 transactions a second, and that's not even our peak. We're gonna pump this thing up. 246 million since 9 a.m. yesterday. Yeah, 15,142 transactions a second right there.
So fun to see it. To me, it was almost like a SpaceX type of experience to kind of just to see the tech work. I definitely felt a lot of joy and celebration to kind of see the baby walk, or the dragonfly,
We started at a Postgres database and some Python code. And we've changed that into a cloud-native microservices architecture that scales up and down and can be built with the push of a button. And it can handle, 4,000 transactions a second for 24 hours, no problem, while all the developers who built it slept soundly.
The vision that we have since the beginning and remains is to build a platform that you can create anything on, that an entrepreneur can come in and actually leverage that unique, valuable technology that is blockchain in a way that you can't on any other platform.
Our developers have built an exceptional platform, exceptional. As far as Dragonchain is concerned, no matter what happens, I know the technology will live on.
No matter what happens with the regulators in the US and in the world, there's no stopping blockchain technology, and Dragonchain will live on. We need to stand together and defend the right to build the America that we want.